Welcome to the Breakthrough Podcast with your host, Reba Hobbs, a podcast motivated to help survivors of trauma to heal and focus on their full potential.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Breakthrough Podcast. Of course, you know I am your host, Reba Hobbs, and I am coming to you today with some updates, and we're just going to get right into it. I am doing some new things with the podcast. You probably won't notice, but of course today I am on audio because we had some technical issues last week from video. And so I'm still having the same technical issues, and until I get a new PC or whatever, laptop, computer, whatever you want to call it, I am going to be doing audio or try again next week. But we having a lot of technical issues. And then the new iPad that I got for my daughter, not for my daughter, but I got for my business, my daughter cracked it. And I haven't had it over a month yet. So that kind of sucks because that's what I wanted to use to replace my laptop that is giving me all the technicality issues. But we just gonna still roll with the punches. We still got to keep on doing what we're doing. And so with that being said, we'll get right into it. Do not forget that it's elevation. We got 2 more months. Oh my God. This year has passed so fast. I just keep on saying it, but it's just like, I just remember today is October 31st, if you're listening. And I remember October 31st. Of course, it's Halloween. But yeah, 2 more months. And I could tell you this transformation and this transition, and of course, we're talking about transitions this month. This transformation and transition that I've been through personally in my personal life, it has been a blessing, and it has been a whirlwind. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about, it's the last day of October, but at the same time, of course, one more time, it is last day of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it is the last day of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So don't forget, everyone knows someone. Always remember that. When it comes down to domestic violence, you know someone. Everyone knows someone. Try to get help. Also, breast cancer awareness, men and women. It's more prevalent in women, but men can get breast cancer too. Be aware. Take the test, especially if you're over 40. Get your annual checkups. And especially around this time, I think most hospitals and doctor's office, they give them to you for free. So you don't have to worry about doing it with medical insurance. And that's about it. So we're going to get right into today's episode. Today's episode is pretty much, of course, all my episodes are placed upon me in a special way. Of course, we're just talking about transitions this month. And then, of course, next month, I talk to you guys about the whole rebuilding stage. But since we're talking about transitions, we're talking about the undoing transitions. Now, transitions, anytime we talk about, we're talking about how you're moving from one phase to the next. We're prospering, we are elevating, and we are growing. So, the title of this podcast is called Starting Over Doesn't Mean That You're Starting from Scratch. What does starting over mean? Starting over pretty much means you're having the opportunity to start from the beginning, begin again, and have a new beginning. It's just like with divorce. When you start over, that doesn't mean that it ends there. You're starting your life over to a new life and a new beginning. Starting from scratch is pretty much what it is. Starting from scratch meaning nothing has been established before. It was never done before. And so it started from scratch. The example that I give every time, or I think about every time, is when my kids, my two call them my babies, but my son is not a baby. He is about to be 15. I do not want, and most adults and most parents gonna agree with me, you don't want them to grow up. And you feel like if there is anything you can do, you probably could start over and be like, okay, I wish I would have did that differently, and I wish I would have did that differently. And then sometimes you want them to stay at an age. I think I'm at the point where when they get 5, and my daughter is 5 now, it's like, okay, stay at this age. Do not grow. Do not grow no more. I don't want to think about in the next 10 years, which is going to come in a blink of an eye, because I can't tell you it was a blink of an eye with my son, where they're going to be, and me thinking about my daughter being 15 in the next 10 years. But it happens. So when you think about your kids from being babies to growing up, you necessarily don't want to start over, because I can promise you, I don't think that I want them to go back in my stomach, and I don't want to do 2 C-sections all over again and everything that I went through, okay? But I don't want to start from scratch. I put it like that, meaning get pregnant, the whole pregnancy, be pregnant. No, you don't want to rewind and do that. But I do also give my kids and my talk to my children about starting over, meaning when they make mistakes or life just goes on. And I talk to a lot of people, friends, family, clients, about when you get fired from a job, there are many jobs that you can get. Talk to my kids about when you get, my son especially, because it's, my little princess baby girl, she's not old enough to understand, but she understands to the point of what she needs to understand. I talk to both of my children at a early age enough where my son knows more than what he should know at the age of 15, because I bring it to him, and I bring it to his light, and I bring it to his awareness of him talking. And so by the time he's the age that he is, he may know more than what his counterparts or his teenage friends know, because he has his mom that talks to him. But when I talk to him about making mistakes, and we just had a conversation last week about, he used to be this child that apologized for everything. He used to cry at the drop of a hat. CJ never really got whoopings, so he cried at the drop of a hat about everything. But he was like his mama. I was a crybaby when I was younger. I'm still a crybaby, kind of in a certain way. But he was like his mom. And you get in trouble, it's like, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't want to disappoint my mom. So it was more of a crying thing. Now, I'm not saying he's not like that, but now he's at the point where learned behavior, wherever you learn it from, becomes on the kids. And if I was to say I wanted to start over, I would start over with the learned behavior he learned about when he doing something wrong. He has I give my kids a rebuttal, but I think the rebuttal stage is going too far. So when he was younger, I used to ask him if he did something wrong, why did he do that? Explain to me why he did it. I never was the parent that say, just because I said so, it was wrong, and that's it. We had a lot of conversations about why he did things, break it down to me. Then I explained to him why it was wrong to do it. Stuff like that. Well, we're at the stage where he is explaining everything now. It's like no apology comes before it. And asking a whole bunch of questions. Well, Mom, why are you so mad? And I'm sitting there like, clearly, like, you can't see why I'm mad. Like, for real? So what I would say, if I was to start over, I would start over with what he has inherited with rebuttaling at the certain times, and teaching him that there always should be an apology of integrity and having accountability first, and then explaining. I have no problem with him explaining, because how I relate to other teenagers, his friends and family members, I asked them why they did what they did. Just like this weekend, his cousin, I had to talk to his cousin about some things. And, I didn't want to hear, I asked the questions of why and what you think will happen as, an adult because I want to hear what they actually had to say, what was in their mind. Sometimes, believe it or not, it's nothing in their minds. Sometimes it is. But if I was to start over in my personal life, that's what I would say. I would say I would start over with teaching him that an apology before an explanation should always come first. And that's my start over. I wouldn't want to start from scratch for making him a baby, because what I've learned about starting over, the opportunities of mistakes that you make is a learning lesson, only if you take it as a learning lesson. We all have to learn a lesson from everything that we do, because we're not going to be perfect. It's a transition, and transitions can be blessings, as we already know. So when we're talking about starting over, we look at it as a bad thing 9 times out of 10. Oh, I'm going through this divorce, and starting over don't mean I won't be married again. I won't love again. I learned from a lot of things from what I went through in my first marriage. And I'm learning them now, where I am taking the time out for myself and for my kids to understand what not to do, what part to play, and what I want to accept. Because what I am learning right now in my personal life is that there's accountability on all ends. And even though I know this already, I know that there will be times where we all trip and fall and we all do something that's stupid. But it's how you get back up. It's how you move on from that. You also have to not beat yourself up just because you need to start over. I can't tell you, I told a friend this last night, I can't tell you how many times I tried something and I failed at it. And a lot of my friends, they look at me like, oh, you had this business, you had this business, you had this business. Yeah, that don't mean that I was successful at them, but there was a season for certain things, and then they faded. But there was other times I tried stuff, and I was like, that's not working for me. Okay, that don't work. I tried it. Okay, There were other times that a lot of people would put me in something that they wanted me to be put in, and I'd be like, okay, I'll try just because. I remember we used to have these plays in my old church, and because I am a leader and I'm a natural born leader, I always used to sign up to do the background and the production work of the background of the plays every year. I think I did it like at least 5 years in a row, but I just wanted to do something in the church too. It's something that I enjoyed, and I did enjoy it at the time. But I felt like, okay, I done that. When it got to the time where I was just like, it's done and it's over with, that was a transition I had to make. That, okay, it is what it is. Then I started over and I did something else. Then that's when I went into, right after I did that, I went into audio with my church. And I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed learning about the audio. I enjoyed learning about how technology work with mics and sound and everything else. But after I did that, then I was done with doing that. That doesn't mean that starting over, because I started over in each different area, that it was something bad. We always look at starting over as something bad, like we made a mistake. But there is starting overs that came from mistakes. But as long as you learn from those mistakes, starting over could be a great thing. Meaning, when I get married again, I won't do the same things I did in my first marriage, and not because I did something wrong, but at the same time, I would address certain things that I see ahead of time. I would do certain things and say certain things. I would speak up. I would just in those things. Starting over is a great thing because it helps you to reevaluate yourself. It helps you reevaluate who you are, and it also helps you reevaluate what you desire for your life and where God has placed you to be. When you start over, my start over right now is therapy, exercising, even though I don't do it as much as I used to. I got to get back into it. This arm and everything else that's been going on with my aches and my pains in my body because I'm getting older or whatever's going on. I don't do as much as I used to, but I'm back working out. And I'm actually picking up the pieces of my life where my kids are both watching me say, okay, mom is doing this by herself. She's running a business. She's running a podcast. She's writing books. I'm doing a lot of things where I didn't start from scratch. I didn't have to start from scratch. Who I am is who I am. Just because I'm not in a relationship with that person doesn't mean that I'm starting from scratch. That doesn't mean that I go back to the person that I was when I first got in a relationship at 16, 17 with my first boyfriend. And I'm that person. I'm not the same 16, 17-year-old girl. And I'm not the same person either, even from a year ago. And that's the great thing about starting over, because it's like the transition and the flourishing and that you get of being who you are. We all should be growing every day. It should not be just from a year and say, oh, Happy New Year. You shouldn't be the person you were 6 months ago. I promise you I'm not the person I was 6 months ago. And I've learned a lot of more things. I have a lot more wisdom. I'm reading a lot more books. I'm doing a lot of self-development books and reading a lot of self-development books. I'm doing more spiritual books where it's about prayer, because I'm really into prayer, and God is tapping to me about praying about certain things and being very determined about my prayers, meaning what I want to pray for and not just these blunt prayers. And I've been seeing things has been coming to, fruition. It also starting over is basically helping me to transition to see the woman that God has made me to be. Starting over allows you to have progression. And sometimes most of the time, I'll say God is asking you to trust him. Trust him like you have never before, because he is there with you. He was there with you in the past, and he is there with you right now. Sometimes worship is my start over, because I love worship music in the morning. When I wake up, when my kids wake up, I play worship music. Now, by the afternoon, it might change to something secular. Not going to be real. But at the same time, that's how I start my day. My prayer life was my start over, because I literally was praying every morning, consistently for about a year. But then God tapped into me about a couple of months ago and said, you have to pray consistently more during the day, meaning prayer, not these 5-minute prayers. Like, I pray so much now, and it's not because of, oh God, you told me to pray, I'm going to pray. Because I know it's certain things that with what I'm doing with this podcast, God taps into me and tells me what to talk about, what I watch, what I see on social media. A lot of people, social media bothers them. It only bothers me to a point where I feel like when I log out, and I need to log out, like I told you guys, for like once a month, I take it off my phone for a whole week when I really need to hear from him. And then I be like, okay, I can't do social media. But social media actually, for me, is helping me grow, because I only can view what I want to see. And that's the great part. You only viewing what you want to see. So if it's something down your timeline, you either delete it, you skip it, you pass through it, you don't watch it, And a lot of people say, social media makes you want to be another person and do this and do that. And it does. I could tell you it does have that concept. But if you actually get into rebuilding stage of who you are and loving yourself, and that's what this starting over is doing for me. It's making me love on me more. It's making me date me more. It's making me and date the Lord pretty much. It's making me see what I will accept and what I want to accept, like I said. But it also makes me know what I desire for my life, for my future, for my kids' future. I desire my future to look like, and just those increment details. So that's why my prayer life has increased so much, because once you've been through so much, like I have, you get to the point where you say, I don't want to do this. I remember saying this a couple months ago to someone. I just don't want to do this wrong anymore. That I ain't got no other choice but to do it right. And when you feel like that, you have no other point but to say, okay, I'm starting over. But I am starting over. Not from scratch. But I'm starting over as like a rebuilt canvas. And so, like I said, when he tapped into me about this is my rebuilding stage, I'm rebuilding a lot of things. I'm not from scratch because the foundation is always there. And what I'm talking about foundation for me is my relationship with God is not changing. That doesn't mean that I believe in nothing else. That's not from scratch. I'm not a baby Christian. That's not from scratch. I am growing more in my relationship with God. I'm growing with my kids. I'm growing with my life and my friends. I this year alone have taught me so much about friendships and what I desire at friendships and relationships. I promise you, I just don't take no mess now. It's just like, oh, okay. And a lot of people think that that's a bad thing, but at the same time, when you've been through so much, you can't put up a wall. Instead of me putting up a wall and saying to the birds with it, I actually express myself. And then I'd be like, okay, I have to put up boundaries and let people know what affects me, what don't affect me. And that's my start over. Because in the past, I didn't do that. I got walked over. I let friends just use me, do whatever they wanted to do to me. And I just felt like I was more of a friend than they was. I'm pouring it to them. They're not pouring it to me. It was just a lot of stuff. My start over was all the way around through my whole circumference of my life. My start over also was with my teenage son. He's seen his mom married. My start over is my teenage son understanding about relationships. We talk more about relationships. We talk about my future, his future, what that looks like, what that's going to look like in the next 5 years. His sister, where we're going to move, everything. So I incorporate him in a lot more because he's old enough to understand. Starting over also can make you sensitive to a lot of things. But this is the time that you tap into who God has you to be. You have to know who you are. And you also have to have the confidence of the rebuilding stage is for you and you alone. And your isolation with God sometimes is needed. When I isolate myself and I talk to the Lord, it is very needed. Because I was just telling my best friend last night, when I say I don't want to talk, or when I get these little red flag messages that I need time, just give me that time. Because I know that the tongue is very powerful and my tongue can cut like a knife. So when I go there and I feel like I'm going there and I'm about to go there, I shut myself down. I shut myself off to tap into, okay, God, is this me tripping? What else are you trying to say to me? Why is this happening this way? And most of the time I get an answer. Truthfully, most of the time I get an answer. You be like, okay, daughter. And then other times I have to call someone, like my spiritual dad. He is just thebomb.com. That man got my back like no other. But I love talking to him because in this start over stage, he's actually been here from day one. But I love talking to him because he will tell me, daughter, you are going to the cliff. You're going to the edge. I need you to come back. It's not that serious. I need you to rethink. I need you to recalibrate. I need you to, and so he'll calm me down. He just calms me down in a way where it'll be like, okay, you know what? You're right. And it helped me think. So that's my accountability that I have actually with him because he's my spiritual father and he's actually a mentor of mine too. Then it says you can't erase what has happened to you because you will never learn from the lessons. I talked about that earlier. Starting over is not always a bad thing because you will never learn from what you have been through. Everything is a lesson. Every life point is a lesson. Don't carry around yesterday's blessings and miss today's breakthrough. I love that point that I wrote down because I take notes before I do my podcast. And so, because when God taps into me, he downloads things to me. So, of course, if you hear me reading something, it's because I have notes. I wrote down, don't carry around yesterday's blessings and miss today's breakthrough. Okay, so when we're talking about starting over, and we're talking about yesterday's blessings, marriage is a blessing, but if it's over, that was yesterday's blessing. That don't mean necessarily it's a curse. That just means that it's over. You know what I'm saying? But then you'll miss today's breakthrough, meaning, why did that happen? What do you need to prevent to make that not happen again? Do you want to get married again? Okay, so if you get married again, what does that look like? Because I have this saying, just like my dad, everywhere that you go, you are. I say that to everybody a lot because sometimes the common denominator is you. Sometimes in these friendships and these relationships is you. You may be the stepping stone that's stopping you from your blessing. Okay? You may be the stepping stone that's stopping you from your breakthrough. You may be the common denominator that is stopping you from having the breakthrough you need to have so you can have the blessings for your future. Transitions can be a blessing, and starting over is not a new expectation. It's a new revitalization. That's what I said. Let it go. Let the past go. Let what happened go. If it happened 5 minutes ago, if it happened 5 years ago, 5 months ago, let it go. Have no point with it to let it affect you. Apply the transition. Accept the breakthrough. And let's start over. That's what I would end you with. Let it go. Apply the transition. Apply the breakthrough. And let's start over. That is today's podcast. I will see you guys back next week. I'm hoping video, guys. I'm hoping videos come through. But if not, I'll be still here on audio. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, please share. I am definitely on YouTube, The Breakthrough Coach on YouTube. And I'm trying to get my YouTube views up. So that's the reason why I want to do my video. But things happen. God is blessing God. So please share. And I love you guys. Thank you for listening. And we will be back next week with another episode.
Thank you for listening to the Breakthrough Podcast. To learn more about Reba Hobbs, please visit Instagram and Facebook at The Breakthrough Coach Online, and also youtube.com at The Breakthrough Podcast. You can also visit www.rebabell.com for breakthrough coaching or merchandise. Also, please visit and join the Facebook community support at facebook.com/domestic survivors only. Tune in next time for another episode of the Breakthrough Podcast with Reba Hobbs. Thank you for joining us.